Hi guys, this is Alex for Chessfactor.com, and today I'm going to bring you the final part of the series on the Scotch Gambit here, the advanced variation. So let's put that on the board. e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, knight to f6, pawn to d4, e takes d4, e5, and here this marks the beginning of the advanced variation. And here Black plays the typical move that by now we should be familiar with, d5. There are other possibilities. Black actually can put the knight either on e4 or on g4. Let's take a look at the move knight to g4, because I think this sets a nice little trap. We won't look at knight to e4 today, but knight g4 sets a little trap that the white player often mistakenly goes for. White can take this pawn on f7 with a typical tactical idea. King takes bishop, and now knight g5 is check, and white knows that he'll be getting back his piece. However, after king g8, white can take the piece, queen takes g4, and here, if queen takes g4, Black has the clever response h6, knight f3, the knight has to defend, and now pawn to d6 here with a discovered attack on the queen, and Black is going to be winning this pawn. If Black advances the pawn, if rather White advances the pawn, Black can go queen f6 and the pawn will fall anyway. In the meantime, the Black pawn is being defended here on d4. So this is really not a good idea for White, as it turns out. So it's quite a clever little trick to be aware of. Basically, if you are playing this variation as Black, you should know that you can play the move knight to g4, and if White takes the pawn on f7, in fact, Black is going to be the one ending up with a better position. After knight g4, instead, the best move for White would be to castle, and after castle, Black would develop his bishop. It would be too dangerous to capture this pawn with his king on e8, so would develop his bishop to e7, White would defend the pawn, and Black would attack this pawn, because otherwise this knight on g4 is going to find it difficult to go back into the Black half of the board. So d6 would be played, pawn takes d6, and after queen takes d6, we get a position with chances for both sides. Basically, Black for now is still a pawn to the good, but on the other hand, he lags behind in development, f7 is a little bit weak, and his queen is a little bit exposed. For example, White at some point could play b3 with the idea of putting the bishop on a3. We can say that both sides in this position have approximately equal chances, but of course, the game is in its early stages and there's a lot that can happen and a lot to play for. So this is the move knight to g4 that I say is very much a playable move against the advanced variation. But for now, we will return to the main Black option, which is to play pawn to d5 and establish some kind of a grip on the center. Now, after d5, this is not at all like a Max Lang attack, because White still hasn't castled here, and after e takes f6, d takes c4, unlike in the Max Lang attack when White has already castled and he has to move rook e1 check, creating all sorts of problems, in this case, Black does not have to deal with this problem. And the second problem that he does not have to deal with is that in the Max Lang, this bishop is already on c5, and so the pawn on g7 is undefended. Here we see Black has neither problem, neither the problem of the rook e1 check main line, nor the problem of f takes g7, the other major option for White. So don't confuse the two lines and play like this thinking that you're playing something very similar to the Max Lang, because in fact, the position would just be hopelessly lost. Instead here, White should play the move bishop to b5. This is the main line of the advanced variation, and now Black brings his knight to e4. White here can take the pawn on d4 and attack the knight on c6. Here in this position, Black has two main options, bishop d7 or bishop to c5. I'm actually going to be recommending the move bishop to c5, but let's quickly look at what can happen after bishop d7. Bishop d7, the best move here is bishop takes c6. Now, after bishop takes c6, b takes c6, castle, and here the most popular move is bishop to c5. Well, the position is very complicated. On the one hand, we can see that each side has 7 pawns. Black has 2 pieces towards the center of the board, the knight and the bishop. Black's structure is a little bit weaker here. Black's knight on the one hand is very centralized, but on the other hand is subject to some potential problems if it can be attacked by the white f-pawn. Black also, his king still hasn't castled, but on the other hand, white lags behind the development on the queen side. So it's very imbalanced and offers approximately equal chances for both sides. After bishop to c5, the game usually continues with the move pawn to f3, when black plays knight to g5, and here white plays pawn to f4 again. Black returns with the knight to e4, bishop goes to e3. White now has established a better situation in the center, but for now this black knight is a very strong piece. Black plays bishop to b6, preparing to move his c-pawns in order to kick away the knight and to gain space in the center. White plays knight to d2, challenging black's best piece. Black captures the knight, white captures the knight, and now black plays pawn to c5. White here moves the knight back to f3 is the best option, and now black pushes the pawn to d4. White drops the bishop back to f2, and black now uses this. A few moves ago the pawns were on d5 and c6, but now that the pawns have grabbed a little bit more space, not only have the white pieces been pushed back, but black now has this long light squared diagonal to set up his light squared bishop. Again, white has a little bit more space in the center here, has more possibilities to attack on the king side with a kingside pawn majority, and has overall a healthier pawn structure. Black also, his bishop here on b6, it's hemmed in by its own pawns, so it's not a very good piece. But on the other hand, black possesses the bishop pair, the unopposed light square bishop, meaning that white does not have the light square bishop counterpart. And so this is a very strong piece, especially when you consider that white's pawns have advanced and created some potential light squared weaknesses. For example, if we imagine a situation where there were pawns f3 and e4, this bishop would be quite ineffective, but with the pawns advanced, this bishop is a very strong piece. So overall, chances for both sides, and it's considered in modern theory to be approximately an equal position. So this is the one of the main ways of continuing with the move bishop to d7 on move 7. But now let's take a look at the move that I'm recommending, which is the move bishop to c5. So let's put that position on the board. So here, rather than play the move bishop d7, which is a perfectly good move, I quite like this idea of bishop to c5. Basically, it seems as though white is able to just capture here on c6, and if black were to capture back on c6, white could capture bishop takes c6, and the rook on a8 would be falling, the king would be in check, and even d5 would be very weak. But the idea is that if white does indeed capture here on c6, what black will do is, rather than capture this knight, he will take this pawn here on f2 with check, and now if king to e2, bishop g4 check is a big problem, so white should go king to f1. Now black can take the knight on c6, and if white takes on c6, now black simply drops the king to f8, and the problem is that if white starts capturing this rook, then black has the move bishop to a6 check, and actually there's no way to stop the check except to block with your queen, and so of course this is really not a very good idea. Also, you might be wondering what happens if white takes bishop takes d5. Same concept, bishop a6 check, pawn would go to c4, and bishop takes c4 check here. The point is white cannot capture the bishop because the queen on d1 would be falling. Finally, maybe one more point is what happens if white instead captures with the queen. Again, another nice tactical idea. Bishop a6 check, pawn goes to c4, bishop takes c4 check, queen takes c4, and now queen d1 is checkmate. So lots of different tactical ideas, but it's a really, really nice line, I think, because you can catch out a lot of opponents if you play like this. You play bishop c5, and the unprepared opponent, let's place that position back on the board. After bishop c5, the unprepared opponent may capture here on c6 with the knight, and once you play bishop takes f2 check, white can get into very serious trouble very, very quickly. So after bishop c5, what should white actually do? Perhaps best is to move bishop to e3, so that now white can create threats against taking on c6, because the f2 point is no longer under very serious fire. So after bishop to e3, now the move that I recommend is to castle, still ignoring the pawn. Of course, black could play a move like bishop to d7, defending the knight on c6, but if we haven't played that in the previous move, let's not begin to play it now. Let's play castle and still offer up this pawn. Now, there's two ways in which white can take the pawn now that the f2 pawn is defended. The first way is with the knight, that's going to be our main line, and the second way is with the bishop. If bishop takes c6, this is a very important piece, and after b takes c6, if white goes ahead and captures the pawn on c6, now black has a really clever point again, a very similar idea that we've already seen. Black here can take the bishop on e3, ignoring the attack on his queen, because if knight takes queen, then we have bishop takes f2 check. The white king can only go to either f1 or e2, and can you see what the problem is with both of these moves? Well, let me show you. If king f1, bishop a6, the queen will be picked up again because white can only defend against the check by blocking. And if king e2, bishop to g4 will win the queen again. So black will end up a lot of material there. Therefore, bishop takes c6 is really not a very good idea, because after black takes back, you cannot capture the pawn because of this clever trick bishop takes e3 that we just saw. And if you cannot win the pawn, then white should really not give up this very strong light squared bishop. So instead, the best move for white is to capture knight takes c6, b takes c6, and now the move bishop takes c5 is played. Of course, in this position, black cannot play the move bishop takes e3 since the queen is hanging, and well, with this bishop on the board, there is no trick to win back the white queen. So therefore, after knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, and now white plays bishop takes c5. This attacks the rook on f8, so black must take, knight takes c5, and now white can finally win a pawn, bishop takes c6. Black must deal with the threat against his rook, rook b8, and here white shouldn't play the move pawn to b3. We can look at the material and we see that white is up a pawn, and if only he was already castled, then he could play b3 and keep his extra pawn. But the problem is, if he plays b3 here, black can play bishop to a6 and keep the king from castling on the board. And it doesn't matter that this pawn may be hanging. White could win that pawn with a move like queen takes d5. But after a move such as queen e7, we can see that the white king for now is still not castled, and the position is very vulnerable. The pawn on e5 does not have much of a defense. the queen on d5 is vulnerable to attack. And also, the rook on a1 is undefended and the diagonal is opened up. So for example, if white played c4 to lock down the bishop and try to castle, black could now play rook d8. White would have to move the queen to f3. Now black could take the pawn on e5, and we see that vulnerable undefended rook is a big problem. This is not a very good idea for white to try to go after this extra pawn on d5, or indeed to keep the pawn on b2. So instead, in this position, after the move rook b8, white should simply castle. Now black can win the b2 pawn, white can win the d5 pawn, black can swap off queens, and here black can take back the pawn, rook takes c2, and we can see that the position now has settled down. And if we take stock of this position, we can see material is exactly level. Each side has 5 pawns, 2 rooks, and a knight and a bishop each. So there's a material balance. And maybe if we want to play at the absolute highest levels, we can say that maybe white has a very slightly better position. Nakamura actually played this position. For those of you who don't know, Hikaru Nakamura is one of the best, one of the top US chess players, indeed one of the top chess players in the world. He played this position and he beat the top grandmaster with the white pieces from this position a number of years ago. So there is certainly opportunities to win from both sides in this position. At the absolute top grandmaster levels, I would say maybe white is fractionally better, but at the levels of us mortals, this position is perfectly sound position, perfectly reasonable, and so I would encourage you guys to play like this if you wish, and allow a position like this against the advanced variation of the Scotch Gambit. I think that the key takeaways from this position is that when the attack takes place against the c6 point, black can actually ignore this with moves like bishop to c5 first, and then castle, because he has counterattacking threats against the white king. I really like this dynamic way of playing. If you don't like this, you can play the more traditional main lines with bishop to d7 from the black side. And we also covered a little bit of that. So hopefully that was a good education for you guys in the Scotch Gambit. That's about it for this video covering the main line, the advanced variation of the Scotch Gambit. Hope you've enjoyed this coverage of the Scotch Gambit, and indeed the coverage of the Italian game on the whole. And yeah, hope to see you in another video very soon. So thank you.